Just a reminder, if you have your cell phones, please set them to silence. I'd like to call to order the town board meeting for October 18th, 2023 at about 6:30 p.m. As always, we are hybrid and virtual, so we've got instructions to join us via Zoom. Watch us on YouTube and Facebook at the top of each agenda. If you are in the audience on Zoom, please use the raise hand function either during a podium or during any of our public hearings to get in line to share your comment. Next up, I will ask Councilor Nicholson to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so before we kick off the podium, I want to take the opportunity to address an issue that we've been having some discussions about, meeting after meeting here, regarding the SPO at IC. Just in this week, I've met with IC on Monday. Councilor Waters and I met with them and a local partner today, and we've had some very strong conversations about our ability to move forward and find a solution that will allow us to extend the requested security that IC is looking for to the school, and still, as far as this board is concerned, stay within the bounds of the law. We continue to reach out to the comptroller's office with the assistance of Assemblyman Sturpey to try and get some type of deliberation on the questions we are posing, as well as I remind everybody when it comes to conversations like this, one of the best things we can do is advocate with our local legislators, state legislators, so that if a change like this, something that I think is happening kind of across the state, we're asking questions like this, it would be a fantastic time to let them know as they move into session next year that this is something that needs to be addressed at the state level. And there's some pretty simple language that can give us the ability to enter into these types of contracts. But I did just want to say that we had a very positive couple of days, lots of great conversations. Everyone's feeling pretty good about where we're moving, very hopeful, and I stay committed to trying to figure out a way to get this done. That's responsible, it keeps us within the bounds of the oaths of office that we swore, and also be mindful of the concerns of IC, its parents, its congregation, and the children. So with that, can someone grab me the open podium this time? And just because this is another 20-item agenda, we have a little timer here that we'll be using for 3 minutes for open podium and roughly 5 minutes for our public hearings. Okay, so first up, we have Neil J. Smith.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Neil Smith. I've lived in the town of Manlius since 1989, and I'm also a parishioner at Immaculate Conception Church. I'm here to ask the board to consider enacting legislation similar to the rules adopted by our neighbors in the town of DeWitt that would enable the town to designate a peace officer to serve as a school resource officer at private schools at the private school's expense. I believe such a law would address any concerns with regards to the state constitution, and it would help ensure that Manlius continues to be a safe place to live. Moreover, a peace officer would reassure the parents and children and deter those who would mean them harm. I do wish to commend the board on its efforts on trying to find a resolution, and I appreciate the hard work and attention that the board has given to this matter. And I'm confident that you will find a way to ensure that the people of Manlius will continue to remain safe and secure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Tom Bassett.
My printing isn't very good,
Okay, fair enough.
nor is my cursive.
Okay.
Well, I'm not here for the subject that apparently 99% of the people in attendance are. So I'm Tom Bassett, longtime town resident since 1979, retired real estate lawyer, on Barbary Lane, Manlius. It sounds like it isn't on focus, but it will be. I was at the Shopping Town Barber Shop this morning. As you know, Shopping Town Barber Shop is not in Shopping Town, but is out in the Syracuse area. So I was getting my semi-annual haircut. And on the way home, I made a premature turn onto Bowman Road instead of North Burdick Street. So as fate would have it, I passed the entry gate to the closed town landfill. And I thought I was hallucinating at first, but, or that it was a mirage. But I looked through the gate of that landfill and saw solar arrays in the ground. Additional arrays were being installed. So I drove in, saw the crew at work, saw the Abundant Solar sign present, and I didn't realize, and I don't know how many people actually do realize, that the resistance, the lawsuits that were filed by people in the vicinity were either settled or dismissed. But the project obviously had gotten the go-ahead and is conceivably nearing completion. And I didn't even know, most people don't have any idea that it's even, that it was even, the resistance was actually overcome. So that was really a revelation. And really, I just wanted to congratulate the board on their efforts in pursuing this matter. There was vociferous opposition from that arguably was of a NIMBY manner. Nobody wanted their views obstructed from either side of the canal. They preferred that the solar array, solar farm not be installed. But ultimately, you managed to overcome that opposition, and the result will be beneficial to the town as a whole, as has been cited, all the advantages that have been cited, and to the town's taxpayers as a whole, clear benefits. So it's another small step in the effort to reduce fossil fuel usage and to boost alternative energy sources. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Okay. I'm gonna butcher this, but I apologize in advance. Looks like Che, perhaps, at 444893.
Oh, sorry, I don't know.
Okay. I tried like 7 times today and you turned it over. Then next up, we have the last person who signed in. It's AKL and it's Nadine George. Did it come to what?
No, that's about the school, that's about the school.
Okay, sure.
I think you might have walked in right after we talked about it too, so you can we can pick up or somebody can get you up a little bit too.
Yeah, so just another final call, anybody in attendance via Zoom, let's use the raise hand function to speak it over the podium, and then anybody in the room who would like to speak, just raise your hand. One.
Hi, thank you. I'm Savio. Two of my kids go to IC school. I'm a physician and a teacher, so I'm a public servant like any of you. When I take care of patients, they come with a lot of questions. And when they ask me whether they should be on a medication, there are many reasons. Sometimes I can give them no medication, but I still try to go through a way to help them. In the same situation, my kids, our kids, when they go to IC school, I understand you're grappling with the law of the land, trying to do it in a sensible way. But I'm requesting the board to continue your work to help us send our kids to school so that we can serve the community, continue to take care of our patients, and our upcoming generation in the best possible way, and come back home with the safe feeling that our kids are taken care of, especially when my colleagues' kids are taken care of at nearby school districts. Thank you so much for taking this seriously.
Thank you. Anyone else, show of hands? Okay. Feel free to fill in the seats. Folks leaving. I promise you, it's a very exciting meeting. So, kind of the main focus of this meeting tonight, we have the three public hearings for our fire contracts with our village fire departments. So first up, if someone from the village of Fayetteville, Mayor Olson, would like to give us your short and sweet presentation, and then we'll go ahead and we'll open the public hearing and take any comments.
Oh,
We're gonna play it behind.
Okay, perfect. So as you guys are looking at the presentation that was done by Councilor Denton, thank you very much. You know, one of the big things I want to stress is everybody in the Fayetteville Fire Department went home last year to their family after every call. That's the most important thing that we do. Everybody got to go home to their loved ones, and I want to thank the men and women of the Fayetteville Fire Department, our volunteers, our career staff, for their countless hours. You'll see in the presentation how many hours they dedicate on behalf of the people that we serve. To our line officers, chiefs, trustees, clerk's office, thank you very much for everything you do to run the department. It's a 365 day a year, 24-hour day organization. To our mutual aid departments, Manoa, Manlius, DeWitt, Kirkville, and East Syracuse, we couldn't do it without their help and their support. And our police department, because they're on most of the calls that we go on too. I want to thank them. At the last board meeting that I presented, there was a question about billing on high-use facilities. So we went to NICOM, we went to our counselor. We don't have the jurisdiction to do it for the town. So because the parcels are in the town, you have to create that local law. You have to create the information. So that was something that I wanted to bring back. And I appreciate all the support of the town councilors and everything that we do in our organization. It's, as you see, you know, our budget's up a little bit, but our call volume is up, costs are up, but I think we tried to control as much of those costs as we could. I have a present for you. This is a challenge point, and I'm just gonna. So this is part of our Fayetteville and Manlius coming together to buy equipment that's saving capital cost. If you'll see, our capital costs are down $100,000 this year over the year before. That's going to continue to be a number that we can continue to control and hone in on. Sarah, Councilor Bollinger was part of this. We want to get rid of this. And so now we have the reserve set up and we're buying things. I showed Alyssa the SCBAs and the Kier wash dryer on Saturday at the open house. These are things that we're going to continue to do for grants and for our stable funding in our capital plan to make sure that the rate stays as low as possible. But we continue to maintain that best trained, best staff, best equipped, best fire department in the EMS agency and Onondaga County. So you'll see through it's quite the budget, but it's something that's very important to the people that we serve. And I swore I was going to keep it under 5 minutes, and I apologize. But if anybody's ever been here, I'd like to talk about this. I'm passionate about it because it's something that our village takes a lot of pride in, which is providing these services to all the residents. And our call volume continues to increase. EMS has softened a little bit, but fire is going up because other departments aren't doing what the Fayetteville, Manlius, Manoa departments are doing, which is working together and responding together. So we tried to get you updated pictures. They didn't get here, but we have a new ladder and we have a new engine and we have new engines or new ambulances coming. Stuff is taking longer to come in. So just wanted to let you know that I want to again thank everybody involved in this because it's a team effort. There's over 85 people that provide this service. So I want to thank them profusely for all that they do. Any questions?
No, I just wanted to go through a couple of these slides just to make sure people know what they're looking at.
Okay.
So here, again, you can see the fire calls, you can see in district and visual aid, how visual aid is higher than what we're responding to for in district. And then this is a new slide this year, just looking at the village budget as a whole and what fire and EMS does how it relates to their budget, as well as how it relates to their expenses, as well as how it relates to their revenue. And then this is over the years, how they've gone from 2020 to 2024. And then the chart for Manlius and Minoa, they kind of do their budget a little bit differently. We get it in a, this is the fire budget, this is the EMS budget. It was a little bit more combined. But because looking at the village budget, we were able to kind of get a little bit of that separation. So this is just kind of an estimate to show like what the fire budget looks like and what the EMS budget looks like. Of course, no matter what you need a station, so the station goes with the fire. And then everything else is pretty much standard. This is the entire budget. And this is like last year's to this year's.
That major capital expense has 2 payments left. So that's the fire station, which is $476,000. That has we have 2 payments left, and that'll be paid for. So that, you know, the town's helping with 67% of it. So that's gonna help immensely. We may, at the end of the last payment, save a little bit to do some capital upgrades, just so that we don't have to come back and ask for things. But, you
And
know,
I do want to point out too, I think on this slide, it really does show folks that, you know, the service that you're paying for, you know, you're paying, you know, if you're assessed at $220,000, paying $600 a year to get premier, high quality emergency services. So I think this is a slide that I think is really helpful when folks, you know, like we do these, every year, but it's being able to hone in them and understand where your dollars and cents are going, I think is really important. And I think it really helps to illustrate, you know, the amount of work that our fire departments and their EMS services do too, so.
And I show this too, so you can see it was 22,000 and it did go up from assessment. What does that mean? It shows us here.
right. I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's not a dollars and cents business. It's providing service, and it's a service that, you know, if you break it down to that, it's a cup of, well, now, you know, a cup of less than a cup of coffee a day to make sure that you're protected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think it's a wise investment from our residents. So, and as always, we need members. This year, we sold that truck right there. You see, we actually sold that to Manoa Fire Department. And they're having it rehabbed and repainted. Rather than go out on the open market, the mayors and I have a great relationship. We work together and we were able to get that to the Manoa Fire Department so they can use it in their fleet. And then that's that continuation of working together. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? I did just want to bring up 3 things, and I know I got 5 minutes, but I've been working with Councilor Nicholson. So I'm proud to say that the legislature has awarded a $10,000 grant to the town of Manlius for a drainage study. And in the county budget, we just approved $200,000 for a fire and EMS study countywide. And the East, Fayetteville, Manlius, DeWitt, East Syracuse, Kirkville, Manoa is the model that they want to use in this countywide study. And then something that I think all of you will be happy, we put $1 million in for a new comprehensive plan for towns and villages. Well, you guys just finished yours. And I said, well, what about the communities that want to do climate smart plans, sustainability plans? So we put money in for that.
So we have implementation for the towns that have just embarked on them.
So there's $1 million in there that starts in January that will help every community in the county.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that presentation, I would ask for a motion to waive the reading of public hearings.
I'll make a motion to read.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So just show of hands if you'd like to come make a public comment about the Fayetteville fire contract. Anybody in attendance, please use the raise hand function of the Zoom.
I don't have to get up. I just wondered what the ratio is between paid full-time employees versus volunteers. And whether that ratio is changing or difficulty recruiting volunteers.
You can see here, it's about 3 to 1 volunteers per career. Has that trend changed at all?
It's actually coming down a little bit on the volunteer side, but it's stable.
Okay.
The duty night program that we do, just so everybody in the room knows, every night, 7 days a week, there's a volunteer crew in our station, and there's 4 to 5 people depending on the night that stay there from 6 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning. And they're doing training, they're doing vehicle checks, they're doing calls, they're at the station together. And every night you have a volunteer and career staff working together to provide that service, so that as soon as that call goes out, you don't have to respond to the phone, you're there, and we get the quick us the best service.
Do you have college students that are?
We do have a
doing
dorm student program.
Yeah,
right
that's
now,
very
yeah.
cool. I don't know if people know about that.
Allison, was there anybody on Zoom who would raise their hand?
I do not.
Okay, anyone else?
We should have anyone who wants to speak come up with.
Yeah.
Pretty good in
They would
our-
like to come up and make a comment?
Actually, I didn't plan to say anything, but I got to thinking when Mayor was giving his presentation. I formerly lived in the village of Manlius for 33 years. I now live outside the village of Fayetteville, so I'm now in the Fayetteville Fire District. And it's always been a question to me as to why we have the separate fire departments in a town and don't have the kind of comprehensive, like the Consolidated Police Department, which apparently is also something that previously preceded the town of Manlius Police that we have. Now, I'm not making this as an argument as to what we should do that, but the fact that we just sold a vehicle to another fire department seems to me that it would have been the kind of thing that within a consolidated unit would have happened as a matter of course as to where the distribution of resources would go. And I know from my conversations previously with Fayetteville trustee, counselor, whatever your title is, that town law is different than village law. So it's not something that I approach with just saying, oh, you could do this, but I don't know whether it's ever been considered or should be. So it's really a question more than a comment.
So I think the important distinction is that town law towns are not allowed to operate fire departments. So we have an example of a non-village run fire department in the Kirkville Fire Department. And so I think there was a study in 2010, I think that was.
2012, we did a study, and actually we hired through the state, and Ron Drainer, who's a town resident, actually did a study, and it found out that there would not be enough savings to combine the departments.
So
You
some
gotta
of the-
remember,
Still,
sorry to
yes.
cut you off, you gotta remember that the Fayetteville ambulance is the second busiest ambulance in Onondaga County.
Yeah.
First, second
Mayor,
busiest.
would
fire
you mind coming up just because the folks on Zoom won't be able to hear you?
So the three departments are, again, you told me I only had 5 minutes, I stuck to mine. So
The timer's back.
It's
Yeah,
a great-
that
it's-
didn't include the Q and A.
okay, it's a great thing to think about. One of the things that in that $200,000 study is gonna look at the model and what can we do to help these volunteers with shrinking membership. The only reason that we've gone to career staff, when we started back in 1985 with career staff, is we had less and less volunteers and the call volume keeps going up. I don't think people understand, between the three ambulances, we respond to almost 10,000 ambulance calls in the town of Manlius with 32,000 residents. I mean, this is a busy three departments and Kirkville, I always forget. So these departments, so we're not overlapping, we're not doing the same things that other departments are doing, but we're working together. If we're on 2 ambulance calls and we have a fire, Manlius backs us up. If they're on 2 ambulance calls and they get a fire, we back them up. If Manoa needs help, perfect example, they had a car accident on Saturday. The 2 departments that they called mutually didn't show up. They called Fayetteville and we showed right up. So there's a lot of overlap when you look at it on paper, but when you actually go to the calls and you go and see what happens, there's not of overlap. And the savings that the study showed was not significant enough because of the career staff. You need to have those career staffs, you need to have the stations and the capital. If you look, and the chief knows this better than anything, the budget may be 3 million, but out of that 3 million, he's really only got about $400,000 of spendable things that he has to need and replace for supplies. The rest of his equipment, capital, labor, benefits, station maintenance and things like that are tied. So
So just
did
to
I answer
add,
the question?
yeah, but just to add to that too, I read that 2011 study,
Mhm.
and in it, it does recommend doing it joint fire district, if you do a joint fire district. It does say that the cost savings wouldn't be there, but there could be more, efficiencies. Yeah, efficiencies.
Right, which is what we're doing.
Do recommend anyone checking out that study, read it, it's very good.
Yeah.
Very thorough.
The other thing is for taxpayers, if you look at the DeWitt Fire District, or James Hill Fire District, other fire districts, look at their tax rate per thousand and look at Fayetteville's and Manlius and Manoas. It's much lower because you have a village board and a town board looking at every penny, making sure that it's spent wisely. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Close public hearing.
Did you want to? I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So next up, we have the Manlius fire contracts. We have some. There you go.
I always like following Mayor Fayetteville because I could just stand up here and say, ditto. You know, there's not much difference. Oh, you can. There's not much difference in our fire department and Fayetteville. That's why we work so closely together. We do so much together. And as the mayor said, when we cover each other, when they're out on numerous ambulance calls that they're out on the thousands, we're backing them up with fire and vice versa. When we're out on our ambulance calls, they're backing us up on fire calls, or we're out on a fire call, they're backing us up on ambulance calls. That's the way it works. That's cooperation, and it works well. To answer somebody else's question that they had, sometimes the bigger picture doesn't work that way. Sometimes it's smaller and more manageable, and they get along better and they work better together. As you see there, we have the same career. We have a few less volunteers. We go up and down. We just had our open house, so we'll see how many we took in. And I will thank Alyssa for coming that day, for visiting us. But we go anywhere between 50 to 70, depending on what's going on. Right now, the climate for people joining the fire service is a little different than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. The younger generation has a different mindset on how they volunteer their time, if they volunteer their time. So it's hard, it's not necessarily hard to get them in. It's hard to keep them there because something better comes along, they'll go to the better. You know, we're similar as Fayetteville with the cost. Our tax rate went down this year. And we're doing similar things together also in purchasing, which he explained. We just got rid of an engine, a truck, a tanker, and got a new ones under a program that is good for 10 years. And then the equipment will be replaced by the same company at a savings. And also they maintain it. They do the maintenance on it. So because they want to know that it's taken care of when that 10 years is up and they can get rid of it somewhere else. So we're doing that. We buy our ambulances together. So it works out. We're always getting the savings and we're doing fine. So, you know I only have a minute because of the previous person speaking. So, and sorry, Bill, you only have 30 seconds. Right? So if you have any questions of us, I can tell you we have several programs besides our open house. We do our boot camp, which brings in kids for a week that are 4th graders to 8th graders to learn how to be firefighters. And we, believe it or not, we have several of those members, when they got old enough, got out of school, they're now back with us. We have 2 hired members that came out of our juniors program. We also have the bunk-in program, and we've hired a couple of our bunk-ins. I think right now we have 5 or 6 career female firefighters. So, which is nice. They do a great job and they're very enthusiastic. We have a lot of programs that the fire service works with us on, which I know supervisors are seeing. We have our trunk or treat, which they show up. We have our Christmas tree lighting, which they kind of lead the parade. And we also just had our Swan Fest and they were there all day. So, and then a week later, they're hitting the open house. So we do a lot in the community and for the community. And again, our pictures, those are some of the older equipment that we have, the new equipment. I don't think
came in in time for me to get the pictures, so. So, do you have any questions?
And just to go through this one quickly, again, the same thing in Manlius, the mutual aid calls and for fire are higher than what we're responding to in district. Just to take note of that. For this slide, I think the biggest change, I think, for the budget this year is the 5 additional career staff. It was 14, now it's 19. And then again, this is just the overall village budget. How does the EMS and fire affect our expenses and our revenue? Just more an overall kind of look, and then more on specifically their fire and EMS budget, how it has been in the past. And then just the details, this is the fire budget, fire versus last year to this year. Going faster. Same thing, EMS last year, EMS this year. And then the tax rate. So, yep, pretty.
Thank you very much. So with that, we will ask for a motion to waive the reading.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Make a motion to waive the reading.
Second. Carried. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. So I just show of hands if you'd like to make a comment on the Manlius fire contract for 2024.
I have just a question on the.
If you could just come up, just so we got you on the mic or anybody who's watching these.
I had a question on the tax rate slide. Pull that up.
Yep.
Am I assuming from that a $200,000 house increased in value on the average 10%? So although the tax rate goes down, the tax charge for that house, which has gone from 200,000 to 220, has gone up slightly.
That's basically based on the total assessed value, and it's a little different from the total, how the total assessed value of the town has changed versus just what's in the protection district.
Okay, that's what you were trying to convey with that slide.
No.
That's their slide.
Yeah.
Anyone on Zoom? Raise your hand.
John Bassett again. I'm fully in favor of the 3 contracts with these excellent fire departments. But I just got a question that related to a serious fire we had at our house on Barbary Lane 10, 12 years ago. And the only reason the house was salvaged, or most of our stuff was salvaged, even though there's a lot of damage, was that the neighbors, some neighbor developed a petition drive to establish a water district and bring public water into the Milner Field subdivision. And at least the Manly is part of that subdivision. And that led to fire hydrants, including a hydrant that was close enough to our house so that the firemen trudged up the driveway to hook up to the hydrant and probably saved a ton of our stuff. And so the question had to do with whether there was any study, or could be any study, of other areas in the town where it might be preferable to entertain the provision of public water. I don't know,
So,
but mainly for that safety purpose.
so go ahead and, because your district includes both kinds.
Yeah, and believe it or not, there has been a lot of expansion on hydrants and stuff, of water. In areas that we never had hydrants. I mean, back when I joined, no smart ass remarks, please. But there was areas just past the high school that had no hydrants. And now we go all the way up on Palmer Road and Casanova Road and areas of Pompey that we cover that are all hydranted now that never were hydranted. And we still run a tanker because there are still areas that don't have hydrants. I can tell you that in the Barbary tract,
I only know this from a previous job, that Manlius and Fayetteville are probably the two closest departments to certain parts of Marbury that are in Jamesville's territory. So Jamesville's getting that call first. Jamesville gets calls to the Marbury track sometimes before Fayetteville and Manlius do. And most of the time, if we get them right afterwards, we'll get there before they do. But it's similar that we get called to parts of Pompey that's not within our fire district. We get called to parts of Pompey. That Manlius and Fayetteville will get there before Pompey does. It's just the way it is. It's you know, what's going on with volunteer fire departments and stuff. And it's a growing concern. But I know between Fayetteville and Manlius, we've kind of squashed that concern because when we have career guys on, they're out the door the minute the call comes in. And that's why we can go 10 miles to get to somebody else's district and fight the fire before they even get out of their station because of that. So, okay.
Any other comments? Okay,
Make a motion to close public hearing.
second. All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries.
So now.
Oh, we should actually go back and
Okay, we didn't do that.
Yeah, I was wondering why we weren't adopting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do, but let's not.
No, we'll just do it. We'll just do it.
Okay. You think so?
Yeah.
I feel like it's not order now.
You can just do them one by, do all the public hearings.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying.
So next up, we have the Miller Fire Contract for 2024.
Start.
Hello, everyone. What I got? 30 seconds?
Now, everybody gets 5.
Oh, all right. No one takes up each other's time. We all get along great, so that's all right. So anyways, Manoa, the slide show here, but I'd like to say the same thing really that Mark started with, thank you to, Fayetteville and Manlius, of course, for the cooperation and everything we get from them. We also have a lot of cooperation with Kirkville and East Syracuse, because East Syracuse butts up against us where Town of DeWitt comes in. But, it's a team effort, of course, and this business now has gotten crazy, especially in the ambulance business and taking care of everything. The state of that in our county right now is all over the place. But with this town, be rest assured that we have 7 ambulances that are serving the town of Manlius in our fire protection district. So we're out there, we're doing, really what the worst thing that happens is when we're drawn into the city. And that happens a lot because the city just, everything gets going and it's a domino effect. So if we get sucked into the city, then Fayetteville's got to cover us, or Manlius, or Eads. I mean, it's just a whole domino effect. And the last thing we want to do is send our rigs downtown and we never get back, because then we're down there and they'll keep pulling us because we're available. So, but I feel confident in the way all 3 of us are running our ambulance service. And we're giving, you got the best service, especially, Fayetteville is one of the busiest here in our county. So, you've got good protection, so you never have to worry about the emergency services in this town. It's top class, and just like Mayor Olson said, they're using us as a model. And best form of a compliment is when people want to copy it. So they want to copy us and find out how we're doing it. Manoa's a little different, of course. We don't have any paid staff. We're all volunteers. And, we can go through the slideshow if you want to take it from here, and then I can fill in from
So
there.
again, this is a new slide, this is again just showing Manoa's, but the village of Manoa's budget, again, looking at how fire units affect their expenses and their revenue. And then this is again, from where they were 2020 to 2024, township fire budget, EMS budget, and total budget.
One of the things, just so residents know, we covered 77% of the town of Manlius. Everything on the other side of the canal is what Manoa covers in our fire district. Yeah, right here. So we have a big chunk of the town and, of course, a lot of rural areas. But, just so, you know, everyone has a percentage, and of course, Manlius goes into Ponte and so on and so forth, but just so everyone knows, you can see our call volume. I mean, of course, Fayetteville is a little bit more in Manlius, but still, we're right in there. I mean, the call volume has increased year over year, even in our fire and rescue calls and ambulance calls.
And then this one too, where we saw Fayetteville and Manlius had more fire calls for mutual aid here, it's more, they are responding more in district than mutual aid. Yeah. So then this fire budget,
Yeah, what we did this year, as Mayor Olson said, we bought one of their mini trucks. And we got rid of a big heavy rescue and we got rid of a mini pumper. So we're downsizing, we're looking for, you know, I go to my chief and my fire commissioner, Bobby, and, you know, my big question this year was, who is the Manoa Fire Department? Who are we today? You know, what that means, I'm asking is, what's the majority of our calls? Do we need all this big equipment? We're not, you know, there's not as many structured fires that used to be because construction is different and everything else. So who are we today? And who should we be? And what type of equipment should we have? And by purchasing the piece of equipment from the village of Fayetteville, was able for us to get rid of these big heavy duty rescues and equipment that we just don't need anymore. We're not that type of fire department anymore. Most of our calls are rescue calls that we can handle with a smaller unit, and we don't have to have as many people respond to get a big engine out, you know, and get a full crew. With the smaller ones, we can have smaller crews to get there, to get things started, and mutual aid on its way anyways. We have help from all over, so, you know, we have to look, you know, fiscally be responsible on the fact that we don't have to keep up with our neighbors and have the biggest, brightest, and newest trucks. We have to, you know, we have to buy what we need to cover our residents, to cover our fire district, and make sure all of you are covered and can feel safe at night that someone will be there when that whistle goes off. You're gonna have someone there for you, so.
so that's, yeah, I was gonna cover that. So, just a note on the fire budget from last year to this year, the most increase for the fire is that they're hiring chief and some personnel. So that's where that increase comes from on the fire side.
Yeah, as I said, we've been volunteer, thank God, for a long time, since we started in 1913. But it's come to a point, you know, we had some growing pains a couple of years ago, and we went to hire now a part-time chief that's on, and we also have a paid full-time caretaker that's in our operation. So we're great. I don't know where it's leading. We're looking at everything right now. You know, the village board, we're talking and looking at where we going from here, because volunteers are going down and maybe we do need a paid staff. I don't know what the answer is yet, but we're looking at everything to see what's the best way, most efficient way to run our department.
EMS was pretty even, and that's because revenue went up.
And with EMS, you know, years ago, we went into a contract with Waves. And Waves basically, we own all our equipment, we own our certificate of need that lets us operate in New York State. But we needed people. So what we've done with Waves is we lease management people from them. That's what they give us. They give us management people to man our equipment. All our equipment is owned by the village of Manoa. But what that saves us is we don't have to pay any, you know, the insurances, retirement, anything like that. It's all taken care of by Waves because they're supplying the people that man our ambulances. So, and it's worked out well. We've been in that now for, was it 10 years? Roughly. So yeah, it's been working out great. Here's our equipment. Our new piece was on Fayetteville's slide. We're getting that, of course, wrapped and painted green. God forbid we have a red fire truck. I make sure we got the green, so doing that. So that's really where we are. It's pretty straightforward with us. And like I said, it's just great to be in a town where we have such great cooperation with our neighbors, with Fayetteville and Manlius. You know, the three mayors, we all get along great, and even with the town, their support, John Deere, I mean, we all work together to serve this great town that we live in. So,
Thank you.
anything else?
Questions from the board? Okay, I would look for a motion to agree. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Anybody in attendance, show of hands if you'd like to make comments? Well, yeah, I feel like you probably want to grab a seat nearby.
No, so your presentation there gave me a thought of another question. And the question actually is relevant to all three departments. So you have a comprehensive plan for the town. Is there a comprehensive plan within the departments for the anticipated Micron needs that are likely going to visit the community? So in terms of your volunteer force with perhaps additional residential needs and so on for both Fayetteville and Manlius. It seems to me that as I read the comprehensive plan, that's not an element that's specifically addressed. And it seems that since that's now delegated to three independent departments, cooperative as they are, nevertheless, it seems to me there should be some anticipation planning for what comes. So that's a question more than a comment, but.
Yeah, well, one of the things, I mean, one of the things with Micron coming in, we all have to, I look at Micron, it's like a big puzzle, and all the municipalities, as far away as maybe Fulton, up in Oswego County, wherever, we all have to find our piece of that puzzle. I feel Manoa, our piece is residential, because we do have a new development that's being built. There's over 135 lots left there. So we have room to expand residential wise, which Micron's gonna need because we have a housing shortage and what have you. So our piece is the people, and of course, with more housing and all that, our fire department might need more equipment, more volunteers, more paid, maybe we have to go to a paid staff. And, you know, we have plans in our department, I know Fayetteville and Manlius have the same, and I won't speak for them, but we all have plans, 5-year plans looking ahead of where are we gonna be as a village. Our population, I feel, is gonna grow. It has grown in the last census. Manoa was the only growth in the town of Manlius because of the housing developments that we still have. We still have prime land, and we have our own sewer plant, which is big right now because Meadowbrook, which a lot of you are on, has a consent order they're dealing with. So there's really hardly any more capacity with Meadowbrook for this part of the town. So by coming into Manoa, we're all on our own sewer plant. We don't have anything to do with Onondaga County sewer. So those are our things. And as far as Fayetteville and Manlius, I mean, wherever their piece of that puzzle is going to be, and then I know they planned ahead for the Micron burst.
Well, and I think too, you know, when we think about some of the big developments that the town board is considering right now, specifically the project in North Burdick Street, generally speaking, early on in the process, we're reaching out to the fire departments, we're having conversations about, you know, making sure that the sites are laid out to allow for fire protection and flood protection, but also it's an opportunity for us to kind of have that conversation about, you know, if this many units are being planned, you know, and then the fire department has awareness of that and can plan accordingly. So by pulling people in on those bigger projects, it does. Yeah, it really does allow everybody to kind of understand where we're going and respond accordingly in future budgets. So.
And with the county looking at a county-wide study, I think that that's where that really can come into how does Micron affect fire in Onondaga County. And
Office of Emergency Management has already been to the Micron plant. It has plans all drawn up to help Clay and all the other departments. But I think this question is more about housing and how we grow, and we are funding.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
In a similar manner, for all three departments. I don't have the numbers exactly in my head, but if a third of the calls are mutual aid, are they mutual aid Fayetteville serving in the Manlius district or in the Manoa district?
So I think in the numbers you're seeing, it's all mutual aid for each department, whether or not mutually the response is to something else within the town.
Well, the question that I have, mutual aid's a great concept for keeping the size of the departments modest and allowing them to back each other up. But if, for instance, Syracuse is using the town to back up its systems, if that mutual aid is mutual, that's great. But if it all goes one way, then
You're looking for the breakdown of the mutual aid.
Yeah, and I've looked at that a little bit and had those numbers here and there. And I can include them into my slides one year, and I'm happy to make sure I do this again. But it's, yeah.
Anecdotally, what do you remember about it?
I mean, Sarah, you have like.
It's more one way. I mean, I think your concern is well taken. Our emergency services are prepared and ready and end up going to places that are not as prepared.
well, the truth is that each one of the fire departments, I'm sure, pays a lot of attention to this. I just didn't have any understanding of how it
And that's,
works.
I think the conversation about $200,000 for a countywide study, that's gonna be really helpful, because I think, something that I think there's been some frustration where it's very difficult to claw back, when we are providing services, when any of these departments are providing services.
Sure.
And I think the fact that, Micron coming in, taking a look at it countywide, it's not gonna be a quick fix, but over time, especially looking at Fayetteville and Manlius as a model, to then bring that to other communities, so that the burden on our fire departments is less. And that's something we'll be advocating for every step of the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the big things with mutual aid, I mean, like for us, for instance, we're so close to Madison County and the town of Sullivan. We run there a lot because, as far as the ambulance service out there, it's NAVAC, which comes out of North Syracuse. And, Bridgeport Fire, but we're always going to Madison County and town of Sullivan. And even in East Syracuse, and then Eves and East Syracuse comes out our way. But a lot of it is one way, especially out in Madison County. And so Madison County just put on 2 ambulances that they've never had before. So now they have an ambulance corps that they never had in Madison County. But there's just 2 rigs. Madison County is a pretty big town, and there's just 2 rigs out there. And I saw them once when they first started. After that, who knows where they are? They're gone. You don't even see them anymore. But and then you get caught up in the city, like I was saying. Once we get into that city, it's hard to get out of it because we're in the hospital for so long. And then we release and say we're back at service, and they look, what's the closest unit? And if they see us, we're not getting out of this. They're gonna send us somewhere on South Slant, wherever. And then it's just a nightmare.
Any other comments?
So,
Anyone online?
thank you.
Okay.
Motion to close the public.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we've got 3 contracts.
Motion to approve the 2024 Fayetteville Fire Protection Contract in the amount of $2,056,929 as presented and to authorize the supervisor to sign the contract. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve the 2024 Manlius Fire Protection Contract in the amount of $1,839,164.44 as presented and to authorize the supervisor to sign the contract.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Supervisor, make a motion to approve the 2024 Manila Fire Protection Contract in the amount of $1,225,001 as presented and to authorize the supervisor to sign the contract.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have fire protection for the town of Manlius moving forward.
And speaking of which,
Yes.
the Kirkville Fire District, which is not a fire protection district, held their public hearing last evening. I was there, and we also had fire protection in Kirkville.
And they stay on the tax.
And they stayed on.
Our fire district is fire.
And then
Good. So I just, we've got a lot of folks from the villages representatives here tonight, and I just want to say thank you to everybody. These presentations, thank you to Councilor Denton for putting these together. But, I think a large part of what we've tried to tackle here is helping people understand what they're paying for, what services they're getting. It seems like a formality at times to have these presentations, but it gives us an opportunity to ask questions, learn a little bit more about the protection we're paying for, how that affects our lives. And I just want to thank everybody from the villages tonight for coming out and helping us answer those questions. So thank you very much. Okay. We are going to move to item 10. So this is the Twin Ponds PUD, the planned unit development at 5440 Burdick Street. We have on the agenda for the consideration of the board, the updated district plan following a very productive meeting that was had, I want to say last week. And we also are going to have a quick presentation of, anybody that's been following this, we looked at seeker, we had some conversations around seeker. We are swapping over attorneys. We had a conversation about how seeker is handled for a project at this scale. It's very difficult for us at this point with a district plan, 2 pages of text, 3 pages of text, and map to really understand the environmental impacts of something like this. And we were very well educated last time about how this process can be done. And essentially, Jimmy, if you'd like to kind of just walk us through that resolution, or Rory, if you'd like to walk us through that resolution, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed on exactly what's in there. Because I will say too, the board did just receive this within the last 24 hours, so mostly for information tonight to be considered both the district plan and the seeker resolution at our next meeting. So just that no one feels pressured to learn everything right now.
Yeah, so let me just take a quick minute. So the proposed resolution on seeker is the one that you received today, and the first draft is as usual with these kind of seeker resolutions. It's done by the applicant. And I reviewed it, and I've discussed it over the phone. We made a few tweaks and changes, but basically this proposed resolution is the seeker resolution for the PDD, right, for enacting the PDD. Later, this is all going to go to site plan review, and that's going to be, this is a type 1 action, and it's going to be another type 1 action. And there is, I believe at the last meeting, Tim talked about segmentation, and in this particular case, it's been determined that this is the proper way to do this because this is a piece of legislation that's sort of setting up a district. And then there's going to be another full seeker review. But with respect to just the words of the district, there's really not much environmental impact at all. Everything happens when it goes to site plan. So once it's out of the hands of this board, go to planning board. Actually, I'll be there because I'm the planning board attorney, and we'll go through quite a robust process. We know this is a pretty environmentally sensitive area. So I think the plan this evening is just to introduce this resolution. I'll let Brody talk about it for a minute. And then at the next meeting, hopefully this seeker resolution and the revised district plan, which I believe you all have seen in advance, that went through some recent revisions, I think just a week ago, that you'll see in red. Some of it is planning board input, some is applicant and other people. So.
I think Jamie summed it up perfectly, so I'll be very brief. The seeker resolution, just points of interest. The first page gives you some background about the procedure that's been followed. The second page, where the therefore clause begins, talks about specific impacts. These impacts come directly from section 617 of the seeker regulations. That's why they're structured the way that they are. The resolution acknowledges that for certain things like traffic and stormwater, there would be anticipated to be impacts that would result from a development, but those impacts would be better evaluated once the project is fully designed. That can't happen until the district plan is adopted to provide zoning to allow that process to continue. Skipping ahead, paragraph 8 provides some background. Specifically, that's language that deals with when segmentation is permissible and gives you the test that's set forth in the New York DEC handbook as to when permissible segmentation is permissible, which it is in this instance. I'll stop on that unless there's any other questions and just give you a brief word about the district plan.
And then the upshot is to have a negative declaration for the zone change itself and then go into what else would happen.
That's right. Yeah, the neg deck would be on the to approve the district plan. And then after that, the applicant would apply for site plan approval for the project, either all in one phase or in different phases. And then there would be, once you have that, you'd have the details of what like the stormwater system would look like, what exactly the, the road improvements would look like, and traffic and all that stuff could be evaluated more intelligently at that point. With regards to the district plan, this was workshopped last week on Wednesday. Like Jamie said, got additional comments. This document incorporates comments both from the planning board and from the town board workshop. They're in red. We do our best to cover all those comments. And I think it covers everyone's concerns. The most significant changes are on the 3rd page, where there's additional language concerning accessibility for persons with disabilities, and some additional language that deals with tenants staying past the 10-year mark. So hopefully those are all implementing the changes that this board wanted and that the planning board wanted. And we're very hopeful that at your next meeting, the board could act on both of these and the project go forward.
Thank you. So any initial questions from the board, or just have a few comments to share?
I just wanted to, I was at the workshop that he mentioned, I just wanted to share the very cooperative nature of this.
Yeah, so I know what we ended up doing was, we had some members of the planning board, and we had some members of the town board, as well as developers and our attorney. And I think that meeting and kind of seeing the evolution of this document really underlines the power of this PUD process. I mean, we kind of walked into this whole process hoping for the best, hoping that we would be very lucky with developers that were willing to work with us. And again, the fact that when we received these original district plans and some of the ideas, it was clear that the comprehensive plan had been looked at, read through, addressed. And I think the ability for us to go back and forth, have comments from not only the board, from the public, from not only the county planning board, our own planning board, really highlights the value in this process as we look to more formalize it into the future. But the ability of our board members, planning board members, to be able to have that dialogue and really shape a project. Because now we have a much better idea of what the vision is, what the comprehensive plan. And I will say, as far as how we normally get involved, where we do a zone change and we hope for the best. This was, I will say, really a pleasure to be a part of. I really thank our partners and developers and their representatives. But I think what we've learned is that as things are changing, we're adapting to Micron and all these other things, growth. This PUD process is really going to be invaluable, especially when we consider a lot of what's left in the town to develop, especially south of the canal. They're going to be more difficult projects. It's not, a couple clean acres, we put a development on and we call it a day. So just really got to say, thank you to everybody that's involved in the PUD process. It's really been great, and I'm hopeful that at the next meeting, if there's any further questions, happy to get those answered over the next 2 weeks. But anything else from the board?
I have 2 things. I was wondering about restaurants. I know in some of our other zones, we do actually clarify on what type of restaurants we want in these areas, so I didn't know if we should do that here. So for example, in neighborhood shopping, we say.
Also, okay, I just restaurants.
So I went through this and I can't remember if I said this comment or not, so I apologize, but I did not. And like some of our zones, when they do more heavy use, we ask for a special use permit, but this doesn't seem like that would require that.
So you really wondered about drive-throughs?
Yeah, like drive, like, so that's my concern, is drive-throughs and like the faster restaurants. So I don't know if that.
Well, let's do this. Let's take some time to look at how all the different zones handle restaurants specifically.
Yeah.
And we'll send some feedback, and if there's any need for clarification in the document, we'll.
I would say, just in a quick response to that the wording of J may make the whole rest of this.
That's why,
Yeah.
I thought of it, was because something we're referencing a different zone. And I
So
wondered
then we
why.
may be able to consolidate this list. If
We
we
could-
want
we
to
could
just
say
say
examples
examples, what's
are-
permitted in the other.
Yeah, something like that.
So we'll get some feedback to you guys. I think what we'll do is we'll probably put something together that we all have a good sense of.
Okay.
We'll get that, and then if there's any need for this further discussion, we'll set something in next week.
And the second thing was, appendix A, should we have that? So I still can see that. So I want to see appendix A. And then the other
Well,
thing.
maybe can you see the drawing?
That's the drawing, yeah.
Yeah, but I
Yeah, I
don't see it on
have-
our site, or I don't know where it is. It's been
I
updated.
believe it's, we'll find that to make sure it's part of the, but we have that.
Okay, and then the second thing was to do with that is, because I wanna make sure that somewhere, I feel like in the district plan, it should say that we wouldn't adopt this, we wouldn't dedicate this road unless it was complete. So, and I think that was the concern of the planning board as well.
Still is a way that it's a through.
It's a through road, not a driveway, basically.
Didn't the county planning board say that we shouldn't take it?
Yeah, I think county planning, the plan is for the road to be a public road. We don't know exactly when the parcels to our south will become fully developed. So it is not possible for it to be a full loop. But our hope is to put up quality housing now, right?
No, that's fine, I just
And-
say you can't dedicate the road until it's completed, is basically
Completed on our parcel.
completed,
Well, we'll be able to
completed.
have it dedicated the
So,
road to us.
This is really
I'm
listening.
They've been already having some conversations about that, but it's a different owner, so we can't make that.
I think the idea, Brody, if I'm not mistaken, is to have at least a driveway, a way to move it all the way around. And that easement document is being worked on with, in cooperation with the developer, the party that owns the rest of the parcels.
So if this road is completed, when that potentially gets developed, then they would be required to update to it.
So we would, the road would be dedicated as partially complete, and then when the remainder of the parcel is done and the road's completed, we would also.
But if the county is the one that adopt it.
Yeah, so the way I think the sequence, and using the map, I can,
That's why I want.
yeah. So the way that I think that it's gonna go is, this development is ahead of the one to the south. So this development would be completed, infrastructure would be completed, there would be a road built to town specifications through this parcel, and then it would go to the property line. And in the short term, from the property line extending south towards North Burdick Street, there would be an emergency road. But that road, I wouldn't expect that road to be dedicated until the subdivision and site plan process for the southern parcel is completed.
Yeah.
So our desire would be for the completed road on the parcel that's the subject of this application to be dedicated and maintained, you know, at the time of the construction of this project, and not have to wait for something to happen on the southern property.
We might have to work on some of this, the particulars of that, obviously, because if, you know, if it's going to be plowed and so forth, are the plows then gonna come circling all the way through that right of way? Are they gonna be able to do that? I just want to ask the highway superintendent about that, or if there was going to have to be some kind of a hammerhead or.
Yeah, if during the site plan process is required for a turnaround and hammerhead at the property line, of course, you know, that's
And
something.
I think at this point, too, before our next meeting, we could definitely talk to Superintendent Cushing, get a sense of where he's at, his level of comfortability. And then just, you know, a reminder, this is gonna go through site plan to the planning board. And I will say, I talked with the developer to the southern parcel, they have plans. It's not abandoned, they have a couple different options, so that is moving along at whatever speed it can. And so I think the concern of having that gravel road there for years upon years, I don't foresee that being a long-term issue.
But what the county says, I agree with, like, it just considering the length of the limited utility proposed, like, it just doesn't say, it should be a private road maybe not a town road, so that's correct.
So I just think if you would keep that in mind in terms of any room for the other.
They will.
Chief Builders here, so did you want to weigh in on the road now?
I've already been talking with the developer and been involved, so all good.
Anything else?
I just have one thing on this phrase workforce housing. I didn't know that I grew up in Brookside. I didn't know that Brookside was actually built as workforce housing for GE back in the day. That's how it was imagined as. So I think it's really, that's just a reminder that what we're trying to do is make sure people's minds don't collapse into all kinds of assumptions in any direction. I think that the whole idea about what we're building for whom, when it is to have, and I really appreciate the detail and the model, the leadership around accessibility for folks, which I'm sure Councilor Taliana does, and all of us, Deputy Supervisor Ballender. This is about just being thoughtful about, making sure we are welcoming all folks, and whether you're working, for Micron or not, that, you'll have options here in the county. But develop the trains. So anyway, it's kind of an old fashioned term in some ways too, but I like how we're reclaiming it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, well, we'll
Thank you.
probably see about 2 weeks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Moving forward with approving that we.
So ideally at the next meeting, we'll have all our questions answered and we'll be able to consider the local district plan and the Manlius resolution. Okay, thank you.
Thank
you. Okay, next up, we have public hearing for local law and residential transitional zoning classification. So we set the date at our last meeting. Just to be clear too, there's no ability to take any action on this. We are still waiting back for recommendations on this local law. Really just as a refresher, this is us taking a look at the fact that we've opted in as a town to cannabis retail and on-site consumption. And the goal with this change is to be flexible and trust that the same way the state regulates alcohol, the state regulations for cannabis will be are robust, equivalent, and will be enforced through what the state has said is the right way to do that. And so this is a local law that changes some definitions. And then as well, because of some recent changes that we've seen from the Office of Cannabis Management, with the ability to do what's called a cannabis grower showcase. Essentially, this is, I think the simplest way to say it is the growers and processors, I'm using the wrong language here, were greenlit, no pun intended, a little bit earlier, and the retail rollout has been much slower. So understanding that state legislation has created this economic situation, the cannabis grower showcase is an opportunity for processors and growers who don't have that market readily available to sell some of their product and stay in business, stay afloat in anticipation of further retail rollout. And so we've been working with some folks that are interested long-term, hopefully, in opening up a dispensary, and that this local law does address those necessary changes in the definitions, as well as looking at our RT zoning, which is a very small portion of zoning, right at the crossroads of Seneca Turnpike and Troop K. And the potential in a couple of those sites, one in particular, to house one of these grower showcases. And so, in the idea that we want to be fair to business owners, and it's now legal to open up dispensaries and on-site consumption, we wanted to make a small adjustment to allow for that grower showcase. And it's in a response to that becoming a new thing that's happening. So with that, I would ask.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the public
Okay.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
hearing. Motion to waive the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So just show of hands, if someone would like to come up and any comments?
My name is Nick Agrippino. I am head of the finances at the number 2 licensed processor in the state of New York. I'm also on the policy committee of the Cannabis Association in New York. We were the association that lobbied for these grower showcases. Given the slow rollout, we worked with the state very closely, making sure this was set up properly, very well thought out, all that jazz, right? Just a couple things, John, I wanted to add it specifically with the grower showcases. Not only is it cultivators and processors, but it's also pairing up with a current licensed retailer who has already proved compliance is open. There's only about 25 of those in the state right now. So these are already licensed businesses coming together to kind of temporarily fix the lack of rollout for retail dispensaries. And then one other really important note that was kind of at the heart of these grower showcases, in a traditional dispensary, vendors cannot come, are not legally allowed to come and, showcase their products. That's why it's called a showcase event, right? These events are very centered around public education, which is very important, especially in early market. Okay, so that is really at the heart. Hopefully we get that rule changed one day to allow for that in a regular dispensary setting because it's very good. There's probably about 40 or 50 of these events going on statewide. It's working. They're working. There's a lot of attention to them, and really the educational piece of that and allowing growers and processors to actually interact with consumers who a lot of times might not be very educated is probably the best thing about this whole program. So just wanted to say thank you and then give a little bit more on what the state allowed us to do.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other comments? Anybody here?
Thank you. Just switching sides a minute, I wanted to stay because this is a referral to the planning board, and the initial workshop that we have ahead of the meeting, which is just a few board members to go through agenda, this came up. And it's going to go to full discussion of the board. I know that some of the members that were there were concerned about the location and whether this was in fact the right spot for this facility because of its proximity to residential, and that many towns have put it at a much further distance from residential. And understanding, I think, that we need to find a spot for it. But just the initial, and this is not the full board, but just to be prepared, I want to prepare, that they're not meeting till next week, and this will come very quickly, right? For this board to think about that was a concern of the group that will probably come out in full, fully vetted next meeting.
Thank you.
Just next week.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well,
Good evening. I I'm sorry, Rob Oley. I was wondering, I received the notice of the public hearing by happenstance, and I was wondering what measures were put forth to notify the public of this public hearing.
Think the clerk can- Yeah, we just followed our normal notification process when we amend zoning classification. So we publish it in newspapers, put it on our website, it goes on our signboard here. And then I also did send it to the village of Manlius just because it's very close to your border.
Yes.
It was referred to Onondaga County Planning Board and then of course our town planning board.
Okay. And where is it on the website?
We have a,
Because I subscribe to the Notify Me, and I worked with the village to get their alerts to where it would alert us to the public hearings, and I don't remember getting one for
We
this.
have to have an electronic signboard that mirrors, and I think maybe all municipalities to the extent practical have it, that word. have to have one, but it is on our public notice section of our website. So it's almost like a signboard that mirrors ours. I also put it in highlights from the clerk, which is something that I send out right after the meeting. That has no legal ramifications.
Right.
It's just an additional way that we do that as well.
And have you knocked on doors or sent to the residents in the area?
Not for zone change, not for like this kind of change.
This classification of the zone. Yeah.
And this is also too, following the heels of the work session we did earlier this year, that we've pretty well publicized, it was well attended, to have this conversation, so this is kind of a response to that, and also to the lack of any feedback after that work session, or really any conversations about major concerns about how cannabis is to be zoned.
I know that Mr. Agrippino did a lot of grassroots outreach earlier on, too, before the workshop and when the legislation was going through its final stages. And towns and villages were having to respond. So he's someone who could, we could talk about the awareness and the sort of the map of the people that sort of have grassroots awareness who were engaged too, but yeah.
Well, that was, and I will say I know the petition was passed at some point amongst village residents, urging the board to put the opt-out possibility in vote. I know the petition was declined. And so, but the conversation has been happening, we started this conversation.
I was part of.
We did some public hearings early on last year, or work sessions, I forget. Yeah, as we were considering whether or not to opt out. So, this is an ongoing conversation that's been happening. And as our town clerk said, we followed normal procedures. We set the date at our last meeting, it was on that agenda, it was on this agenda when that went out. I know this agenda went out a little bit late. But so we've gone through the motions to make sure that, if people are interested in finding out how this is being rolled out, that, we've had a continuing conversation with many opportunities for feedback, and, generally speaking, this is cognizant of that feedback.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks. Anyone else? Show of hands. Anybody in Zoom attendance want to raise their hand and make a comment? Okay. With that, I would.
You're really open.
Okay. Sure. Great. Okay, so we will leave this public hearing open.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the hearing till the next meeting, November 1st at 6:35 p.m.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Yes, I have a question. So for in we're changing the zone, but I like that we're changing RT. RT is very small in the tax, we're kind of like a nice trial. So like, but by changing the definitions, this would still only be able to be allowed in RT.
No, so by changing the definitions, we're allowing it so that where definitions are used. it
That
falls-
would be interior.
Yeah. And two,
So this is not a zone change.
Yeah.
This is
No.
a change to our code,
Oh,
which allows the use in the RT district.
Okay, so it's just for, it's changing some definitions, but it's still just for RT.
correct.
That's
So
what
let's
I'm
go on, maybe we should highlight now where RT is, just broadly.
Because it actually changes the definition of retail sales under the general.
That's what I'm.
And I believe restaurant was the other,
Yes. And
because that
then,
was following the conversations we had
That was
where.
mine. This
We
is
had,
one.
yeah, essentially, basically, what we did was we looked at anywhere where we singled out alcohol sales, bars, public consumption of that, and we tried to follow, like the state used alcohol regulations as a
Yeah,
blueprint for this, we just tried to follow suit.
my question is, because we're like putting it in RT specifically for the outdoor grocery, but by putting it in other zones, and if they say that's a farmer's market, then
Well, so the change for the grower showcase is specifically within RT, and that's just because we've had some folks reach out about.
I don't think it's how
Yeah.
I keep getting that in a second.
But yeah, this is,
Farmer's market.
so basically in response to the new thing that's happening, which is allowing for the showcase, we've essentially, I mean, I can't imagine many of those parcels are chomping the bit. We've got one that's currently up for lease. We've got folks that have reached out and asked for some help in setting that up, and so really pretty lucky actually that it was such a small, such a specific zone,
Yeah.
targeted to a very specific area, so that we're not making this wide sweeping change.
Yeah, I like that.
Again, RT is also concentric, right? RS, okay.
They have their own zone.
So just as a reminder too, when we made our changes to RM zoning, we had considered essentially changing RT zoning to RM zoning.
Yeah.
We, because of some publishing and other requirements, we didn't do that. And so, you know, the intent of the board was to bring that kind of in line with RM. And so again, rather than try and sit back and say, okay, let's address the whole RT zoning, this is just a small change so that everything that's happening with this local law is specific to cannabis.
So it's kind of a good way to.
Yeah, well, especially too, when you consider that all of the RT parcels are directly across the street from a shopping center.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it very much jives with, you know, the sense of where these things can and should. Okay.
Tim's looking at something.
I just want to make it.
No, it's not that.
That's for, so ours does RM, well, assuming folks like see any.
Retail sales of 5%. Yep.
So,
Oh, just like the new.
so then this would apply. Let's see.
Anything else? Okay, so we will.
Did we vote on the motion to?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we will look for the recommendations from the county planning board as well as the, our planning board, and hopefully consider this at our meeting in person. Okay, so next up, we have the zone change request for 7078 East Genesee Street in Fayetteville. This is from R1 to residential multi-use. If you'd like to just kind of refresh our memory about the intent. Ethan?
Sure, thank you. Mike Fogel, I'm representing the applicant, Botar LLC, and we're seeking a zone change from R1 to RM for 7078 East Genesee Street for a professional law office. As I went through at the public hearing, we think that this change fits perfectly within the intent and purpose of the RM zoning district. And we think it's consistent with the corridor, as I think I noted, there's other law offices and other professional offices right in the vicinity. And we think that this is a really good opportunity to implement a recommendation in the newly adopted comprehensive plan, because it identifies that Route 5 corridor as transitional mixed-use commercial, and we think this is a nice first step in implementing some of the recommendations from the plan. So, you know, we did provide a traffic study from GTS Consulting. We understand and we appreciated the comments from the neighbors, which were, I think, primarily focused on traffic. So we wanted to make sure we looked into that for the board and for the record. And Mr. Stansberry, who's a professional traffic engineer, looked at the area. He foiled accident records from DOT and determined that, well, first of all, that, you know, the rate of accidents on the road is really actually below average for similar type of roadways. He also looked at the professional office use and the anticipated number of employees that'll be there, and basically determined that it's going to be a very minimal generator of traffic.
Well, and I will say too, I think especially at the last meeting, we had a lot of feedback on some of the proposed developments and changes that were centered around traffic, speeding concerns, congestion, cut-throughs, I think especially for this case. And so I know Councilor Priestel and myself, we had a meeting earlier this week to discuss kind of a plan of action to work with the folks in that neighborhood that's directly adjacent. I know we've got a traffic detail out there. We've let everybody know that there's a traffic detail out there. We're not trying to catch folks. We're trying to make sure that people are following the law. And so that's been productive. And I think, you know, what we're going to be trying to do is work with that neighborhood as we discussed last time to first off have a community conversation about how we can tackle these problems together, but also to lay out the options that we have. So we've got the traffic calming measures we've been looking at. I will say that the flashing signs have been delayed, as with everything the highway department is trying to get their hands on. But we are looking at, flashing signs, traffic detail, potentially speed bumps in some areas and also sidewalks that, whereas if it's difficult to control the traffic, we can at least provide a safe place for folks to travel along that road as pedestrians. So we are gonna be reaching out to the community shortly. I think we're looking to try and find a location that's fairly close to have that community conversation, put together a petition, lay out kind of some strategies and things like that. Because I think that was one of the bigger takeaways from last week's meeting was, it's not always simply the development that's being proposed. Sometimes it's just getting the folks in a particular area together, having a conversation and saying, we do have this existing issue. And so it's kind of our responsibility to hear that existing issue and address it as best we can. So
Honestly, you're making me think that one of the things that could be a great idea, just putting it out there, we think about a community benefits agreement mindset, something about, being welcome to the neighborhood and also welcoming folks is to maybe have a room where people can gather for one conversation or something, not an expectation that's ongoing. Maybe a meeting at the space would be something that people would be receptive to, and it'd be a nice entree. So I'm just suggesting.
Yeah, I can certainly take that back to my client. I mean, they live in Pompey, their kids go to FM schools, they're part of the community already, and if you know the Votars, I mean, they're great people, so I'm sure they'd be open to something like that. I'm
Are they
sorry.
related to David Votar at the planning board, or is this like a different? Votar?
Anthony Votar, who's one of the partners at Votar, that's his brother, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought I don't think both are like particularly common, no, who's
Yeah.
actually related to who.
So.
Thank you for taking that back.
Yes.
Yeah, we will definitely be reaching out about taking part in that. I think that's another big part of it is not just having the town board show up and help talk to the neighborhood, but also to bring in the folks that are kind of initiating these conversations, making sure that everyone's a part of this conversation.
Right, and and the next step, obviously, and I think I mentioned they've engaged Kethlinger Freeman, who's very experienced with planning issues. So fully expect, obviously, full site plan review with the planning board, and I'm sure there'll be additional discussion on the types of issues that were raised before this board. So.
Yeah, and I think too, I don't know exactly, tell me how we would go about doing this. But if we wanted to consider this, we'll also send along a recommendation to the planning board for site plan to ensure that
No driveway.
yeah, to essentially keep all of the traffic from this property to and from Genesee Street and not to have any exit out.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't share everything that we heard in our public hearing with them so that the neighbors there don't have to just go and do the whole same thing. Not that they aren't.
So do we have to do anything special?
We're very fortunate.
Have recorded meetings.
Attorney who will be listening to the discussion that will be taking place.
And it's all Brooksville is all obviously recorded, so they're welcome to watch the recording of that conversation. I can go.
Well, we will send a letter. When we do see, we'll talk about the specific type of site plan
Yeah.
thoughts that might help.
So I mean, maybe we do see.
And of course, the planning board did unanimously enthusiastically recommended.
I think that the most, like, over and over and over again, the concern we heard was traffic on that road. So I think it'll fall really to the town board to work with that community, as the supervisor mentioned. It helps to kind of, like, they were dealing with an existing problem that they were afraid this would exacerbate. But it's really that existing issue that we can now work with them now that it's been brought to our attention to solve. We have the driveway, they don't want people feeling more inclined to use that as an asterisk, was their main concern, but we'll continue to work with those neighbors on that. Can I make a motion?
No, we're gonna do some papers.
Tim, how many?
So, the first position is.
I'd like to make a motion to declare this non-Manlius state agency. This zone change request on Genesee Street. For the purposes of seeker, yeah. For the purposes of seeker.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
So the next thing we need to do is, I need to say two things. One's already been said. The planning board has already made a positive recommendation to this board for the zone change. And we did hear back from Onondaga County planning board, and they have made a determination that this will not have
any county-wide impact. So we'll just make that for the record. It actually included those two paragraphs to the resolution of the local law also, so that really was changed that they said to that to. So part one has been filled out, which is the local law that will do the zone change. We need to go through part two. So I'm gonna go through the 11 questions of part two. Based on what we've heard at public hearing, clearly traffic was the most significant issue. And we'll also get into that a little bit with some of the findings that have been put forward in the resolution. But I think it's our responsibility now to go through part two. I'm going to read the question. You let me know whether it's going to be a no or small impact or a moderate or large impact. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No, in fact, it's in keeping with the comprehensive plan that's just passed. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of the land?
Change in use.
Small, notice small, clearly it'll go from a residence to a professional office building. We should recognize that the law firm that's being proposed is a plaintiff's type. It's not a real property where you have a lot of closings that are coming in, so I don't think it's a significant intensity. Will the proposed action impair the character quality of the existing community? We have many RM communities right across the street and a very long route for so no. It will not have an impact on the critical environmental area. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, like the walkway? The applicant has provided us with a traffic study that has indicated that it will be very minimal in terms of its impact on traffic. So everybody agrees that's not small. Okay. Will the proposed action cause an increase in use of energy and fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy factors? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public private water supplies or public and private wastewater treatment facilities? The answer is no. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Yeah, that's the whole point of our right? And an old beautiful building that will be able to restore, utilized. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. So based on that, along with several kind of findings that I put in the resolution, which I did everybody read them, did any questions about them? Did anybody disagree with any of those?
That was changed or changed?
I did change one thing at Sarah's request about how long this facility, this building has been for sale. She's saying
I think not many years. I think only.
Yeah, it was definitely over a year.
Okay. It just seems like so based on all of those, I would certainly recommend a negative declaration. In other words, this will not have a significant, the zone change will not have a significant effect. So do I make a motion to that?
So I make a motion to make a negative declaration.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
And one of the conditions that one of the things I recognize or I kind of pointed out in the findings is this concept of the ingress and egress to the site. And one of the things that the planning board should consider, one of the things that they may want to consider is designing entrance in a way which would make it difficult to make a right hand turn. So that's kind of what I had in mind.
I think that's the overall goal, is to just make sure that the site plan review is mindful of the concerns of those folks in that neighborhood. And obviously, as much as the applicants want to work with us, to just make sure that, as with the traffic study that was presented, or analysis that was presented, we stick to that as best as possible, and just any way possible, reduce as much traffic coming to it.
Okay, and one way to do it is through the design of the entrance. Now, clearly, the New Jersey Department of Transportation is gonna have a say in that also. But that will be a site plan issue. We can authorize the supervisor to send the planning board a letter, saying key comments and all that.
For first, a motion for the zone change, and then a motion to send the recommendation.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the zone change application made by Georgia LLC in the parcel block 23-11, changing the zoning of the parcel located at 7078 East Tennessee Street from R1 to RM. As outlined in the resolution prepared by the attorney for the town.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. And I look for a motion to authorize me to send a letter of recommendation to the planning board about the conversation we had about ingress and egress.
So I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to send a letter to the planning board regarding the egress and egress from this property. I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
Great, thank you so much. And on behalf of the applicant, just wanted to thank you for your careful consideration, and we look forward to going to the planning board.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
It's a good thing we don't do this for everything you do. Okay, next up, we have the Bowman Road easement and right of way request for Verizon and Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation. I do believe we have a code enforcement officer who is looking at this quite a bit on, if he'd like to raise his hand, if he'd like to make any comments, otherwise I'm happy to kind of walk us through. Okay, so basically in the development of the landfill solar site, it came to attention that some poles might have to be moved, and this easement is granting the rights, the right of way, an easement to Verizon and Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation to essentially do that work in the right of way. And this is something that we received a little while back. We've had our engineering team look at it. There was some good back and forth clarification, better maps, things like that. And really, this is one of the last parts or steps in the process for the solar site to come online. So if you have a motion prepared, and we'd like to make that, or if there's any comments or questions.
I'd be happy to make the motion, but I'll also say that this is important also to our conversation about screening. They wanted to make sure we have all these pieces in place, and we're going to be able to articulate that with what they might be able to do.
Well, and I think too, you want to talk a little bit about the meeting?
Yeah, we had a meeting with residents who were concerned about screening, both from the Starkey neighborhood, Aprio Drive, and Clark Hill, Mirror Drive residents. The tree commission wanted to offer, knowing that the ring around the landfill and the solar site is a tricky place to actually plant trees, given it's so wet, and also to get too close to the edge of the landfill means that the roots could disturb the cap. And the elevation of the hill, elevations of the homes and sightlines, we've been at a bit of a loss. And some residents, so the tree commission wanted to offer and make sure the residents knew that we were open to receiving requests for trees to be planted on their property. And that might work for some folks, might not work for others. But also, one resident said, could we even think creatively about a way to camouflage the stanchions or the steady parts? And asked Abundant to look at a very creative solution that they have just to consider it. So we're going to get back to folks by the end of the month. And it was a productive conversation. Thanks. Oh yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the grant of the easement for 5701 Bowman Road as presented and authorize the town supervisor to sign it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We've already covered item 10. Next up, we have a proposal for a peace officer sign-on bonus. This is kind of dovetailing from the incentive program we looked at, I believe, last year, to essentially make the town of Manlius Police Department more attractive to folks that are looking to join us. And so I know I talked with Chief Caselli quite a bit. We have had kind of experienced some outside contacts in the hiring process, and this would really take something that we've already decided would work for transfers for police officers from other agencies. And this would give us the ability to, when we find those peace officers at other agencies that have sufficient training, such that we don't have to send them through academy. And it's a really attractive option because they're not generally eligible for other transfer bonuses. And we've had a recent hire like that where we were able to look at that and really see it pretty quickly, yep. And so really the goal here is we have the transfer incentive. It has been somewhat successful, and this will just allow us to widen up that pool of people that would be available to receive that incentive and help us when it comes to recruiting. So anything like that?
I think you covered it perfectly.
So this is a new policy, not just adding these numbers.
Yeah, basically, well, yeah, it was because of the language and how everything worked out, it just made sense to kind of duplicate and make changes rather than try and make the language work for across both ways. But I think I would say probably about 80% is the same as what the peace officer incentive bonus is. And I will say, I took a shot at it, and then the lawyer and the chief made much better changes and put the language in there that needed to be there. And so we've got something that I think is in a good spot. Any discussions, any questions?
So their version still has questions in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, there's lots of question marks in the.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think that was the way it just maybe was downloaded or saved.
No,
No.
like they were clear.
It's asking questions like, how about if they leave during the third year?
Yeah, there's
Oh,
lots of.
maybe it's
Okay, so we'll table this until next meeting. We'll clean up that language and we'll get that right.
Yeah, there's like lots of, just like the first question mark. and-
Oh.
Tim saved it wrong, it's just.
No, I think I might have saved it as the working editing version.
Yes.
And that over, so my apologies, but just if there's any questions between now and the next meeting, please direct them to Chief Caselli. But again, this is something that we would like to be.
I wanna make sure there's no one that he wants to hire between now and the next meeting. That's all.
I think the intention was to get it done this.
No one on our immediate radar,
Okay.
but I, as always, available if you have any discussion.
While we've got the police on the agenda right now, can I just mention something quickly? I spent all day today at the police department, not because I was under arrest or anything. It's there of my own decision, but I did watch the training today from Don McPherson. So I got there at 8 and stayed till like at 4, and it was truly incredible, and it was very well received by, I can't speak for everyone that was there, but very engaged, just a great presentation. Everyone seemed very pleased with how it went, and that they said it was a dramatic improvement from the other years of training that they've received. It was recorded, so I would encourage you to watch it, maybe if you can't get through all 8 hours. But it was really, really a really well done presentation. I think like the chief and I met briefly in the hallway when he was helping me figure out how to get coffee, that he's been hearing similar remarks. So it was great. Yeah, I was really glad that I went.
Thank you for doing it.
It was great.
Okay, next up, we have to not only adopt, but to set the date for the public hearing for our preliminary budget. So that is, I believe that will be on the website tomorrow, publicly available. We had a laundry list of changes to work on the tentative budget that I presented a few weeks ago. I want to thank everybody for conversations that were had, not only with the staff in my office, but with the department heads. Important conversations about how we're gonna, pass a budget eventually that meets our needs right now and addresses a lot of the things we've been talking about, specifically that pay equity study that we undertook a year or two ago. We're hopeful that with, especially with this preliminary budget as it is right now, it addresses a lot of those inequities that we saw and really brings town of Manlius staff, non-union folks, kind of in line where it makes sense. We were able to address a really important question about kind of what's the minimum salary that someone would make. I want to thank everybody that was part of that study, our employees for taking part in the written portion of that. I think it was, especially for a board that's fairly new, it was a really great way to understand what happens here, and then to advocate for, equity within the town of Manlius. And also too, to make sure that we are an attractive place to come and work. We have some great benefits, and we needed to make sure that we were keeping pace with the economy. And so I think another portion of this is to understand that we are actively negotiating 2 union contracts. And so if you see some pretty substantial changes in the final budget, when we consider that in a few weeks, it's because of those union contracts and some other things that have to get hashed out. But generally speaking, the preliminary budget that is, I'm hoping we will adopt in short term, is pretty comprehensive as to where we'll be on final adoption. And I suggest to everybody, we're going to be setting the date for a public hearing. We're going to get that on the website tomorrow. Please go through it, take a look at it, ask questions, send us emails, point out things that you have questions about. I would say the budget public hearing is one of the worst attended public hearings we have to hold every year. And I am hopeful that we can be joined by members of the community that have concerns about the budget. And we can have a productive conversation. And also to point out that at this public hearing, we do not adopt a final budget. We take those comments, take them back into consideration, make further changes that we are responding to that conversation. So with that, any other comments from the board?
So I'd like to make a motion to adopt the preliminary budget as presented. And I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And
I'd like to make a motion to set the date for the public hearing on the 2024 preliminary budget for November 1st at 6:35 p.m.
all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And just a note on that as well, on the November meeting, I will have a presentation with all the graphs and numbers. We're making changes right now, so I cannot get that done for this meeting, but it will be done before the public hearing is open to go through the budget, look at the numbers. I'll try to get done on the website maybe a little bit beforehand, especially before when that agenda comes out. That presentation will be there, so you can go through it at least in a more visual way, so you can kind of understand it, and then hopefully, again, we want your comments on November 1st.
And just to, I know it's been a fun budget year for us. Lots of happenings, lots of going ons. I do have a statistic that I wanted to share that we just calculated earlier today. So I know there's been a lot of questions about the cost of the special election. And so now that we're on the other side of that, we've kind of tallied up legal fees, supplies, paying our fantastic Board of Elections workers. And so as close as possible to what we were able to put together, the total cost for the special election, outside of the many, many hours that our staff dedicated to this process and delayed other matters, is $13,502.16. And so that is going to be something that we have to figure out essentially if there's room in the current year. And so this is, I think it's important to remember sometimes and add some context. As we are sitting here planning this 2024 budget and trying to see everything that comes our way, when things like this happen that we do not have, really budgeted for, and we have to action on those things. And I think it's important that, as part of the budgeting process, we try to consider on almost every line, are there unforeseen expenses that we aren't aware of, that we can better plan for? And so that is something that we'll be tackling through the end of this year. And I am very hopeful that we will find a couple lines that will be able to cover the cost of our special election. So, okay.
These dates are.
Yes.
We're doing the second workshop.
Yeah. Okay, so I've been working with members of Sustainable Manlius and some other residents and sustainability advocates. I think a lot of the conversation on the comprehensive plan and a lot of the feedback we've received since adopting it is how do we implement it? And I think we saw that pretty well as the PUDs were moving through this year, where as we were trying to advocate for implementation of the comprehensive plan, we are not professional developers. Some of us aren't experts in sustainability. And so I saw an opportunity to work with some folks that are very passionate, and knowledgeable about building sustainably, other advocates from the sustainability sector. And so what I tried to do was set up a meeting where, a work session, where we will have the opportunity to be educated by experts in the field. And that will not only educate the town board on what can be asked for as we go through PDs and talk with developers, but it's also, we're gonna record that and have that posted on the website right alongside our comprehensive plan. Which also means that if developers come in and want to talk PUDs, we can say, have you watched the video? Have you really understood, what's going to be asked of you as we move forward? But then also too, to put together a team of people who, when developers, if they do want to meet those standards, ask us for assistance, we have a network of people that we can connect them with. And obviously too, I think we all love to learn, and we all like to make sure that we're as knowledgeable about what we're talking about here as possible. So.
And we don't just randomly say, hey, can you do geothermal?
Yes,
Right.
I didn't want to say it, but that was pretty much the crux of it is, like, I'd like to personally be a little bit more educated in what we can ask for. So with that, I would ask, for the prepared motion, to set the work session for November 15th.
I'd be happy to make that motion. I'd like to make a motion to set a date for a town board work session on Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 at 5:00 p.m. to hold a discussion with developers and sustainability advocates regarding the implementation of goals identified in the comprehensive plan and other business matters as needed.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Just as a reminder, those work sessions are additional opportunities for the board to come together, have some conversations, bring in speakers, things like that. It is open to the public. I can't promise to be a robust question and answer, because as soon as we put this idea in place, we found lots and lots of people that wanted to be part of it. I am going to do my best to keep the presentation to about 40 minutes of our 60 allotted, and preserve at least 20 of those minutes for question and answer conversations with the public. But we're going to do the best we can, and we know that sometimes things run over, especially when we're talking about stuff work session. So. And please, if you're in attendance tonight, please make sure you mark it on the calendar November 15th. Going to be a very fantastic work session.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm excited for that.
Okay, so next up, we have the 2024 CNY Stormwater Resolution. This is something that we do every year to work with the CNY Stormwater Coalition to meet our requirements as part of the MS4 program to educate the public on drainage, on stormwater and things of that nature. So any questions or comments?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution supporting participation in the CNY Stormwater Coalition Staff Services and Education Compliance Assistance Program is presented and pay the annual fee of $3,600 for participation in the program.
That half was seconded with the comment that we have had great participation from
Yes.
our liaison at that department and volunteering at events for the town. It's a great partnership.
Who is the?
Lauren. Okay.
Great.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving along, my oversight, and the, allowing for things to change, as we brought on a fantastic comptroller. So we, if you haven't noticed, it's been absent from the last few agendas. And so I have, everyone received it, I want to say about 2 or 3 weeks ago, supervisors reports. Obviously something that's covered in the monthly reports that everyone sees from the comptroller, but we did I did forget to add to the agenda, the reports on a monthly basis. So we have a motion prepared for that.
So I'll make a motion to accept the supervisor's report for the months of May, June, July, August, and September as presented.
All those
I
in favor?
haven't finished reading all of them, so I'm going to abstain, but I will read.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Motion passes. Thank you. You will see those moving forward. Okay, so next up, we have quotes for a fall cleanup. The previously designated group that was going to help us with our grounds maintenance was not able to meet what we're looking for. And so that means we do have some money in the budget to address kind of the overgrowth we're seeing around the building. And this is someone who was part of the bid or RFP, the informal RFP that we put out for quotes. And this was relatively speaking, a very affordable option. And we're excited to be able to work with a person who will be helping us out next year so that they can take this opportunity to learn the set a little better and plan for the future, so I look for, motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Edwards Landscaping for the fall cleanup at Town Hall at a rate of, well, $1,200.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
It's just the invoice.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
Like a per hour.
And then two, we do have our, the fairly regular ASMOS contract we have for shoveling, throughout this winter season. I think the rate went up, about $20, I think 180 to 200. We are seeing that a lot with, that kind of, work, as we're trying to find contracts for that, and the cost of labor is going up, and so, I think too, just a reminder, $200 to shovel out everything so that people can get into town safely. Just, I think it's a small price to pay, so, if anybody would like to.
I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Espinola Landscaping for the 2023-2024 winter season for the removal of snow and ice from sidewalks at Town Hall at a rate of $200 per visit.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We didn't know the workshop was good or.
You're going to the stage.
Okay, sure. Well, we're happy to announce that the Manlius Watershed Stewards, a committee of the town composed of volunteers and residents, is now live on the town website. So take a look over it under the government section. There's a separate committee of the town called Manlius Watershed Stewards, which has great resources to look at what our purpose and agenda is, and some really neat things to poke around and look at to help understand what is a watershed. What can you as a resident or an interested person do to help monitor and maintain this very beautiful and precious aspect of where we live, and learn about our first event, which is actually going to be scheduled to be held on the 21st with a rain date of the 28th. So spoiler alert, it'll be the 28th. We're going to be taking a creek walk down Limestone Creek, just here at the Peter Canal. We have some volunteers from SUNY ESF and a couple of brilliant scientists and folks from the town to help show people what to look for in a stream to indicate stream health, and just some other really fun activities. We'll have a microscope set up to look at samples.
I'm a musician, a scientist.
Yeah.
Citizen science act. And it's a family event.
It's a very family-friendly event. We will be bringing some refreshments, and one thing that will change quickly is that we had our public is of course open to coming to our meetings, which are at the Manlius Library on Tuesdays. The schedule will be up, but we have been advised that we can actually change the wording from citizen science to community science.
Oh, great.
You don't have to be a citizen to be part of this community.
Yeah, great. That's great.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
And they'll be at the Salem Manlius meeting, the first Thursday in November.
Oh,
So
great.
they'll be collaborating a little bit with people.
Kind of seeing two community-oriented committees come together. I think we're fearful of how many good ideas are gonna come out of it. I'm excited that we're able to kind of put that together.
Clearly, given that I was the Salem Manlius meeting, I was always.
Yeah.
Everyone who uses water should know where it comes from, where it goes.
That's a brilliant tagline. That's great.
So next up, we've got the approval of the minutes from September 27th.
Allison, did you have a conversation with Tim?
Not yet, but that's more of a clerical change. Alyssa had brought up that in the property tax cap approval section, we would note for the record that there was a 60% approval rate. So she's just asked that I reword it so that it doesn't seem like only 60% approved it, but that it was approved was by 60%.
So we'll make that motion as amended.
So I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 27th, 2023 as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion passes. Next up, we got approval abstract number 20.
The motion to approve abstract number 20 in the amount of $358,351.31. And there really is no limit.
I was pretty standard.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Oh, hold on. I wanted to see anything else we need to cover, anybody, any comments? So I'd just like to thank everybody for an efficient, clean item agenda. It was tonight, really appreciate the village coming out. So with that,
Mr. Supervisor.
all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Nice.